to family, just giving you something to talk about, or just a live TV as I like to call it. I'm your host, Melissa Krechler. I'm an identity coach, spiritual teacher, business mentor, creator, and founder of not only Just a Live TV, but Women Supporting Women Can Network. And I'm going to speed through that because most of you have already heard it. For any of you watching, please go and like, follow, and share the show. Do all of your regular stuff. Sharing is, of course, caring. The more views the show gets, of course, the better it does. So we are inspired to help people by sharing their stories, and that's what we're going to do today with how creativity helps you heal. So today we're going to be talking about creativity, art therapy, many different ways that we can use our creative self-expression to help us heal. Currently, I've got the hiccups now. Our sponsor today is a Phoenix Identity. If you're feeling desperate to feel like yourself, to reconnect to who you are, and build and create a life that you feel blessed to be living, please go and check them out. Schedule a clarity session today, and link in the description of this episode. I'm going to hand it over to our guest speaker today, Myriam. Myriam, would you like to introduce yourself?
Of course, thanks. I'm really happy to be here. And what I will say about me is that I currently am a mental well-being coach and a creativity mentor and an art therapist. And I have been in the mental health field for nearly 20 years now. And yeah, I know I said that out loud, didn't I? And right now, what my focus is helping women in middle age or / Gen X women, right? Because we don't like to be called middle age. Really discover the power within themselves, to learn to trust themselves and build confidence. And all that is through the prioritization of their mental well-being, which creativity can be a really, really important resource for.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I think that people, when we talk, because you had mentioned you do art therapy, which I find absolutely amazing. And I've suggested art therapy to people as well, where I love the thought of, I watched a movie with my daughter the other day, and one part of it was this kid was talking about how, his parents had divorced, and they were rich. So the dad had bought a warehouse, and he didn't find any use for the warehouse. So he kind of gave it to his kid to just do whatever with it. And so he took the girl there, and he had a bunch of canvases set up. And the canvases were probably like 8 to 10 feet high. And he had water balloons that were filled with paint. And he said, this actually helps me heal, right? And I think about that, and I love how they portrayed that in that movie. So if anybody's wondering, that's Do Revenge. That's the movie. But again, it was really good because that is, right? We can use art. Now, whether you're throwing paint at a canvas, whether you're drawing a self-expression, whether you're drawing a landscape, it doesn't have to be particular, but just the thought of being able to put your emotion, I'm going to backtrack for a second. When I talk about creativity, I'm talking about, and self-expression creativity, I'm talking about helping you take all of those emotions that you're feeling, all of the traumas, all of everything that's going on in your life, the stress, the struggles, the positive.
I call it your innards.
Yeah. When you're trying to release that, because if we hold on to that, we have no outlet for those emotions. They just build, right? And it becomes like this volcano system. But when we're able to express that, whether through tears, whether through yelling, whether through, doing the warrior women call, whatever it is that you're doing, art therapy, music, you give way for those emotions to energetically flow out, right? Or,
yes.
You don't have to visually see it, but it does, right? It's a release of those emotions.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the most healing things people can do, is just acknowledge the emotions and find a way to let them out.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think we can get through life without access to that emotional content and without helping ourselves release that. Otherwise, life is much, much harder because, like you said, we're carrying all that in our body, literally, and feeling the weight and heaviness of that, right? Well, what's interesting for me in my experience is that I am not a trained artist, right? So I went into the field of art therapy just thinking it was kind of cool. And something I could do with kids, because I was already working with kids. I was a preschool teacher for many, many years. And so I thought, oh, wow, this is what would be a great thing to do with kids, And so when I went into the program as a, at the time I labeled myself a non-artist, they expected that I do 6 units of art, of course, right? I mean, you have to know what the experience is like for you, if you're going to ask other people to do it, etc. But I was like, I don't understand, I was going to do this for other people because I was so limited in my thinking, which we all are, I think, in terms of how we define ourselves as artists, or what is, defined as art. But of course, it was the most magical thing that could have ever happened to me, because I began to utilize art, in this very different way. This was not an art class. I was not there to learn technique. I was, this was like, how can we use all of this rich, beautiful material to express what is happening inside you? Right? Whatever that means to you, whatever that looks like to you, and to really start to look at the art process as this really neutral and resourceful experience, right? There's no judgment to it. There's no value to it. It's not good or bad, right? It just is. It's whatever was happening inside you is now on this page, or wherever it is that you're trying to express that, So it's very powerful in that way. And, when you think about what the research shows, and really how it accesses your brain in all of these really impactful ways, and how that's really the source of how change begins to happen, right? It's extremely powerful, extremely powerful. I can't say enough about it, because my own experience, like I said, coming into it as like a non-artist, and feeling very intimidated by the people in my program who were like MFAs, you know, um, but it helped me work through all of that, all at the same time. It was like, oh, it's okay, because that's not what this is about, and the more I dove into that, I call it wild art expression, and just allowing that freedom. It's actually a parallel to your life, right? Because it's like you're letting go. It's a metaphor. You're learning to let go. You're learning to trust, right? You're learning to allow your wisdom to come forth, and not allow your cognitive thinking brain to get in the way of that, because that's a lot of the issue that most of us have, is that our thinking brains like just chatter, 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 and when we dive into the creative expression process, that's just not happening anymore. Now you're tapping into this very deeper, much deeper level, of yourself, which I just think it's just the most amazing thing, But the limitations that we have around art, like what our society defines as art, or what our society defines as an artist, is extremely limited, right? And so it's like this teeny tiny box is kind of how I envision it, And so most of us would feel like, well, I don't fit in that, so that means I can't be, And it's like, no, but the way that I see an artist is somebody who's just using material to freely express their inner experience, So I think about my years of working as a preschool teacher, where you would have, this 3, 4, 5-year-old little being that goes up to the easel and just, just goes nuts with paint and all these colors and all this stuff. And they're just free in that moment. And who are we to say they're not an artist, or that piece is not art?
Yep.
Right? They're very proud of it. And so again, it goes back to, well, this artist, this is their interpretation of, whatever it is that they were painting, about. So I keep bringing that back to the adults that I work with, because that means if a child can splatter a bunch of paint on a piece of paper, well, so can you.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that, right?
While you were talking about that, I had a couple examples that to share with people. So if I used to say I'm not artistic, right? I always used to say I'm not artistic. Now I'm a creator now. All of this I made. Not all of it, that one I didn't. Majority of that I made. I make a ton of stuff, right? And I create in words. I create in the show. There's a lot of different ways that I create. Now, if I sat down and I said, I'm not an artist, and did Van Gogh believe that he was an artist at first? Did any of them, right? And if you, let's say you go to splatter paint on a canvas. You've got a smock on, everything's kind of prepared so you're not making a huge mess, and you have water balloon paints. right? Like the video that I mentioned, you got water balloon paints. You're sitting there, and before you throw those water balloons, all of society's pressures are building, going, I shouldn't do this. That's not art. I can't make a mess. I can't throw that. It's going to go everywhere. It's going to splatter. All of these doubts are going to start creeping in before you throw that water balloon, right? Before you throw it. This is wrong. I shouldn't be doing this. Everybody else's beliefs are going to be coming at you. Society saying, no, 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 this is not right. But then once you throw that balloon and it splatters, it's fun. It's freedom.
Mm-hmm.
It's all of these things wrapped into one. And the emotional and even physical, like we're talking emotional, physical, energetic, all of that.
Absolutely.
Over you when you do that. Singing a song, even if you're singing, if you're having a bad day or a good day and you're driving in the car, my happy place is driving the car. If I'm driving in my car, I've got the music blaring. I suck at singing. I do not have a singer's voice, and I'm okay with that. No judgment. I'm no shame, blame, or guilt on my end. I admit that, and I'm okay with it. But I will be singing at the top of my lungs while I'm driving, and I don't care. I don't care what the people in the next car think about me just singing at the top of my lungs. I don't care, because it makes me feel good. That it makes me feel free and it makes me feel happy. If I need a good cry, I'll listen to sad songs. If I'm feeling sappy, I'll sit love songs. You know, if I'm feeling ragey, I'll listen to rock. Whatever's in the moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's freeing. It's liberating.
It's expression.
It's expression.
Mm-hmm. And that's
right?
that's all we're really looking for, is just,
yeah.
That expression. And if you think about the word express, it makes me think of an olive, and how we express oil out of it, like something beautiful comes out, of that experience. And so to think about it from that perspective, and especially for women, I see women as creators by nature, and creative by nature, therefore, but again, we get in our own way because of these definitions of art and artists, etc. When, again, like you're saying, it's not about any of that. It's just about expression, freedom, right? Liberation in a lot of ways, and how that parallels your life experience. Because for me personally, and I find that most of my clients are giving me similar feedback, is that once you let go with the art, once you push through those thoughts, like you were mentioning, like, oh, I don't know, or I'm not good at this, or whatever, and you just let go and do it anyway, all of a sudden that starts showing up in these other areas of your life.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit more letting go over here, a little bit more letting go over there, because you're almost exercising through the creative art expression how to do that, how to push through that or move through, right, those emotions that come up when you're having a lot of doubt and stuff. So it's very expansive in that way, how the benefits just kind of keep coming, and if there's stress, it's something that could relieve stress. If you're feeling really stuck, it's something that can move you out of stuckness. It can help you, like I said before, kind of connect to deeper knowing, so that you gain insight from your art. I have art pieces that I keep up, and I just keep going back to them, like, what are they telling me today about this particular experience that I decided to express, on this page or whatever. So there's just the benefits are just endless, right? But I strongly encourage people to just let themselves be non-artists. I myself call myself a stick figure artist. That's how I help the clients that I work with relax. I'm like, I'm not a trained artist. It's okay. You don't have to be a trained artist. Even if you've never picked up a paintbrush in your life, that's not what it's about.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just feeling it, right? Being in the moment, feeling that expression.
Mm-hmm. And I loved how you said before that the encompassing of these 4 aspects of who we are as humans, right? Because it does touch on, mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. Like it brings all of those pieces together while we're in the process. And I mean, that's a whole experience.
Yeah. I do that with my Empowered Warrior Women's Challenge. So with that, at the end of everything that I do when it comes to the Empowered Warrior Women is, you know, if every woman watching this, or even every man watching this, because it's not specific to women, it is and it isn't, but there's a warrior inside of you. There's like this powerhouse, this epicenter of power within you, right? And we have the ability to tap into that at any point in time. I call it chakra power because it's usually in one of them. But when it comes to that, you sit there and, you know, think about the warrior you are. You know, envision yourself. And for anybody watching, do this exercise. Envision that you are the greatest version of yourself. You're the warrior. You power through. You know, everything that society tells you, that you're strong, that you're brave, that you're powerful, and powering through your struggles and your trauma and your stress and everything that you're going through. And then feel that energy rise. Feel it rise up into your voice, right? And feel it through your body, and then yell, right? Do that warrior call. And if you think about it, how many cultures do we have across across the globe that have had a warrior's call, right? That battle cry, the I'm here, hear me roar, right? And let it out. Society, we're told as children to color inside the lines. We're told to, you know, be quiet and settle down. School, and don't get me wrong, I am out to change the schools. I'm out to change mental health because I think our systems are so outdated that they're doing more harm than good at this point, right? Maybe 100 years ago or however many years school systems have been in place, they're not teaching what they're supposed to be teaching. They're teaching us how to all be the same, and we're not.
Right.
And so now, you know, coloring inside the lines, there was a guy or an artist who sold a banana duct taped to the wall for like $200,000.
Right.
A banana duct taped to the wall, like, mind blown.
Right.
Why is that not considered art, right? Like, who cares?
Well, and who decides?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's just it. And from my perspective, it's like, well, the artist decides. That's who decides. No one outside of you that gets to decide, you know, what your art definition, you know, or identity is, you know. And to piggyback on what you were saying, you know, in terms of what you do with your clients, is I would take that a step further, because you're already in the visual realm as you're inviting your clients to visualize, right? I would then invite them to express that, right, on paper in some way. It doesn't matter whether it's just a stick figure, like I said, that's irrelevant, you know what I mean? Because to have now this connection to that part of the self is kind of out here a little bit, right? And you can begin to have more relationship with it.
Yeah. And even not just art, right? If you, and even not just physical art, but you mentioned, you know, expressing it by writing it down. If you're not good with writing, express it by singing, express it by, you know, artwork, like draw it, write it into words.
And if you really want to take it up a notch, do all the things, you know,
whatever
do the writing, do your singing, do your dancing, like do your art. It's like that will encompass. And if you add a little bit like of aromatherapy in there, we're talking about all of your senses now. Right, being activated, and what that brings forth, right, as we kind of override our cognitive thinking brain that's always chatting and getting in our way, right? So it's very powerful when you think about it from that perspective.
One of the things I wanted to mention on the show was, you know, creativity isn't just art, and we have touched on that, but specifically, it's not just art. We all are unique individuals. We all have our own unique identity, right? What works for Myriam doesn't work for me. What works for me doesn't work for Myriam, right? Some do, some don't. None of us are going to see the same thing in the same perspective. We're not going to have the same beliefs. We're not going to have the same energy. We all might be interconnected in one way, shape, or another, but we are still individualistic beings. We are unique in our own identity. And so whatever creativity looks like for you, we all are creative, male, female. It is a feminine energy, right? We talk
Absolutely.
about women being creators. It's a feminine energy that's creative, right? And men can be just as creative if they tap into that feminine energy, right? We do all have masculine, feminine energies. We all have all of it. But you look at Mother Nature, Father Time. Father Time is rigid, right? It's a very rigid, routine way where Mother Nature, if a hurricane hits, like we had, not here because I'm in central Canada, I didn't get it, but for everybody else, Hurricane Ian, right? Mother Nature's pissed off this year. It's we're talking about nature as a self-expression of our emotions, right? So if we took that and created that in any possible way, right? If I'm creative by talking and having conversations, that's why I started the show. There's a way for me to be creative and discuss my thought process, right? I'm not good at singing or drawing. My daughter is absolutely amazing at drawing. We all have our creativeness. So it isn't just one of the ways that we've talked about. Your creativeness could be in any way, shape, or form.
Oh, I agree. I mean, we're talking about art, and then we're talking about creativity, right? And creativity to me is just problem solving, to be honest with you. And the more I look at creativity and all of the ways that we can utilize that process in our lives, the more I realize that almost everything is creativity, right? And even in running my business, where I was having a really hard time with like the administrative part, like marketing and, this kind of stuff, which, for touchy-feely people like me is not our most favorite thing. Yeah. And so, but it was interesting because I worked with a coach that helped me kind of see that, well, that's actually a creative process. And as soon as that changed, right, that perspective was like, oh, now this is way so much fun.
Yeah.
Now I'm having a lot of fun because like, oh, I just keep having to look at it through that lens of I'm creating, this is creativity. I'm using that part of my brain, and this is all good stuff. So that's what creativity means to me. It's problem solving and visualizing something different. You know what I mean? So whether it's cooking, whether it's dance, whether it's marketing, whether it's your sales pitch, whatever it is that you're working on, it's like, well, yeah, you're problem solving something, you are creating something and you're moving towards something. So that to me feels like a pretty simplistic way of defining creativity. And that would mean that we all have that.
Yep. And we absolutely all do have it. The expression of it is different, right? My creation may be, doing my heat therapy bags, where your creation is art therapy, whatever that looks like, right? And I'm not saying that's actually ours, but as a general idea of, the different types of creativity. And it's hard to find your creativity when you're sitting in the trauma, when you're sitting in your stress and your struggles. It is hard to find your creativity. It's hard because creativity is also emotional. Because when you start to get creative, you aren't really sitting in that negative energy, right? When you're in create mode. So again, let's go back to that canvas and throwing the paint, right? We can embrace the negative emotions that we're feeling to do it anyway, right? And say, I'm going to let this anger, I'm angry. I know I'm angry. I'm going to use that anger and I'm just going to throw it. I don't care what anybody else says. I'm just going to throw it. Right. Exactly. And then you throw it and you let it out.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Because I mean, if we talk about art therapy specifically, which is very different than art making, which is very different than creativity, right? And the way that I work with clients, which is just to use art as a tool.
Yeah.
It's just a tool and a resource, I mean, I can paint you a really pretty picture of lemons. I know how to do that. I've taken art classes, you know what I mean? But that isn't what is going to reach down deep into my soul and into my heart and help me access or express what is asking to be expressed. Right. And so that's what's different with art therapy or using art, as a resource or as a tool, is that you are actively utilizing it to try to get something. right? Whether it's insight or a different perspective or whatever it is, right? That's the difference between those two experiences. Creativity is everywhere.
Yeah. And see, that's the thing. Like, I would use creativity, or what we use as creativity as the individual, right? Is yeah, I guess I'm trying to figure out how to word that. Not that important. Obviously, if I can't figure out how to word it, it's not that not that important.
Right.
Yeah. So, what is there anything else you'd like to add about creativity and art therapy, and just using our unique creative gifts to help us heal?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just want to encourage everybody to explore their inner artist, because I know it's in there, and to remember that we all have the creativity ability, right? Because we're constantly creating every day in life, so it's already there, right? And that art as a tool is not something that requires any kind of art ability. Right? So some of the classes that I teach are just doodling classes. It's like, okay, how can we just doodle and work on our stress management through that, right? Like, there's no attachment to that. I mean, that's the beauty of it. You know what I mean? So I would encourage people, even if it's just a little bit of doodling or a little bit of, silly sketching or whatever, it's something that will help you move forward.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. I
Mm-hmm.
wholeheartedly agree. I like coloring in coloring books.
Beautiful.
Right? It's easy. I don't have to create anything. I'm just literally filling in the lines.
Right, but you're in your body,
Mhm.
you are moving your arm in a way that starts to
Yep.
access that part of the brain, et cetera. And so you're already kind of in that space. And, the beauty, the secret part about this, right, especially for women, is that it's active self-care, because you are intentionally setting out time, right, to care for yourself in this particular way.
Yeah.
And so that's a beautiful thing, and we all need more of that.
Absolutely. No disagreement whatsoever on that point. Absolutely not. All right. Well, thank you for joining me today, Myriam. I really appreciated it.
No, gosh, thank you for having me. It was a great chat.
Absolutely. All right. For anybody watching, make sure that you check out Myriam. Link in the description to connect with Myriam. There are multiple different ways. I think Myriam sent, yeah, you got website, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Go and check her out. Go give her a follow. See what she is up to and show her some love. Again, link in the description. Phoenix Identity is our sponsor today. If you want to reconnect to yourself and start creating a life that you feel blessed to be living, absolutely join a Phoenix Identity. Check them out. Again, link in the description. Like, follow, and share the show. And have a wonderful afternoon, morning, or evening, depending on when or where you're watching. And we'll see you on the next episode.
All right. Thanks so much, Melissa.
You're welcome. Talk